I'm 17, and last winter, my parents took my little brother to visit my grandparents in another state. I had to stay behind because I had finals the next morning. Honestly, I was kind of glad for the peace and quiet. I had the whole house to myself. 2 stories, pretty old, but nothing fancy. I spent the night studying at the kitchen table, going over notes and flashcards until I couldn't keep my eyes open. Around 11:30, I dragged myself upstairs, locked the doors, and went to bed. I don't know exactly what time it was when I woke up, but it was definitely past 2 a.m. I was in that half-awake state when I realized I could hear something, a kind of soft scraping noise, like someone was dragging something heavy across the ground outside. At first, I thought it was an animal or the wind, but then it got louder. My heart started racing. I sat up in bed and listened harder. It was coming from the backyard. I have cameras around the house. My dad set them up after someone tried to break into his truck last summer. There's one in the backyard, so I reached for my phone and opened the app to check. There was a man standing just inside the backyard fence, right under the motion light. He was wearing this creepy clown costume, bright colors, and this huge, fake grin on the mask. It looked so out of place, like something from a movie. My stomach dropped. I watched him for a second. He was just standing there, staring straight at the back of the house, not moving at all. I felt this weird wave of cold, like I wasn't really there. I locked my bedroom door. I don't even remember doing it. I was that freaked out. I switched back to the camera view on my phone. He was still there, just watching. After a minute or two, he started moving, but not towards the fence. He was walking along the side of the house, slowly, almost like he was taking his time. I could hear the gravel crunching under his feet through the window. I remembered that the side gate was always locked, so he couldn't get in. At least, that's what I told myself. I flipped through the other cameras, and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. I caught him on the front camera, right by the driveway. He stopped there, looking right up at the camera like he knew I was watching. I swear he tilted his head a little, and the way that mask grinned just made it even worse. I didn't know what to do. My parents were hours away, and I didn't want to call them and freak them out if it turned out to be some messed up prank. But I also didn't want to call 911 if it was just a drunk guy in a costume. I decided to stay quiet, hoping he'd just leave. I turned the phone volume down, muted it completely, and sat there in the dark, listening to every little noise. After a while, I didn't see him on the cameras anymore, and I thought maybe he was gone. My heart was still pounding, but I tried to convince myself it was over. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, just waiting for the sun to come up. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke up to birds outside my window and the light creeping into the room. I checked every camera again. Nothing. I never saw the clown guy again. My parents got back that night, and I didn't tell them. I didn't want to freak them out. The footage was saved on the camera system. I copied it and deleted the footage from the system so no one can see it. I still think I should tell someone, my dad or the police. I may or not, I don't know. I work at a 24-hour gas station just outside of town. It's one of those lonely places where you rarely see more than a couple of people overnight, and most of them are just truckers grabbing coffee. I'm used to the quiet and the occasional sketchy customer, but this one night was different. It was about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still trying to figure out how to shake the feeling that he's going to come back. It was around 3 a.m., the dead zone between the last late-night rush and the early morning commuters. I was alone, doing what I usually do, cleaning the coffee machine, wiping down the counter, scrolling through my phone. The station's a small place, 2 pumps and a tiny shop. Outside, it's just darkness and empty highway. I didn't notice the guy at first. The door chime went off, and I looked up expecting some tired driver. Instead, I saw this man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a clown costume that looked like it was pieced together from thrift store finds. The jumpsuit was mismatched, one side bright red, the other a faded blue, with random patches sewn onto it. He had a huge ruffled collar that looked dirty and frayed. His face was covered in cheap white makeup, smeared and cracking, with a crooked red grin that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. But the worst part? The mask. It was one of those cheap plastic ones that didn't even cover his whole face, leaving his eyes and mouth exposed. The combination of real and fake was so wrong it made my skin crawl. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood in the doorway, looking around the store slowly. The automatic doors closed behind him with a soft hiss, and for a moment, it was just me and him, and the soft hum of the fluorescent lights. "Can I help you?" I managed. He didn't respond, just kept staring, head tilted slightly like he was studying me. Then, without a word, he walked over to the snack aisle and started picking up random bags of chips, crinkling them in his gloved hands, but never taking them with him. I kept wiping the counter, trying to ignore the growing panic in my chest. He moved to the cooler, pulling open the door and standing there way too long, just staring into the cold light. Finally, he grabbed a bottle of water and brought it to the counter. "That's $1.50, I said. He didn't reach for a wallet, just pulled out a crumpled dollar bill and dropped it on the counter. I gave him his change, but he didn't take it. He just picked up the water, his eyes still locked on me, and turned to leave. I thought that was it, just some weirdo in a costume. But about 15 minutes later, I looked up at the security monitor. We have cameras outside, and one inside pointed at the register. He was back, standing at the edge of the lot, half in the shadows, the bottle of water still in his hand. He didn't come in this time, just stood there, swaying slightly, the ruffled collar shifting in the cold night air, like he was waiting for me to come outside. I tried calling my manager, but he didn't answer. The guy just stood there for what felt like forever. Probably only 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. Then he turned and walked off into the darkness. When my manager finally showed up for the morning shift, I told him everything. We watched the footage together, saw him standing there, saw him walk away. We called the sheriff's office, but they said unless he threatened me or tried to come inside again, there wasn't much they could do. Since then, every time I work the night shift, I find myself checking the cameras every few minutes, half expecting to see that cheap plastic mask peeking in the window. I don't know what he wanted, or if he'll ever come back. I've never been one to scare easily. Working nights alone at an old mall, you get used to the occasional bump in the dark. But this was different. It was about a year ago. I was pulling an overnight shift at this place that hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in decades. The halls smelled like old books and disinfectant, and the building always seemed colder than it should be. Most nights, I'd just kill time at the front desk, scrolling on my phone, sipping cheap coffee. The cameras would show the same empty parking lot, the same flickering exit sign. But around 2:30 that morning, I heard this weird tapping on the window behind me. At first, I thought it was a tree branch, but the sound was too steady, like someone was knocking softly, over and over. I turned around and saw something scared the fuck out of me. There was a clown at the window, not some bright, goofy circus clown. This one was different, grimy and worn, like the costume had been dug out of an attic somewhere. The oversized red nose was scuffed, and the paint on the ruffled collar looked stained and yellowed. His makeup was smudged, with streaks of white and red running down his face. He didn't move when I looked at him, just stood there, tapping his gloved fingers lightly against the glass. I jumped up so fast I spilled my coffee all over the desk. When I looked back, the clown was gone. I tried to tell myself I'd imagined it, that I'd dozed off and dreamed it, but my gut told me it was real. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside, scanning the parking lot. Nothing. No footprints in the gravel. No clown. Just the cold, empty night. I went back in, but I couldn't shake the image of that face. I pulled up the security footage, rewinding to the moment I'd seen him. There he was, standing right at the window, half his face lost in the reflection from the inside lights. His makeup looked cracked and flaking, but those eyes, they were sharp and alive. He just stood there, staring, that broken grin never changing. He stayed like that for what felt like forever. Then, as if he knew I was watching, he slowly raised his hand and tapped the glass again. I called the police. When they showed up, they looked around but found nothing. No sign of the clown. They told me it was probably some kid in a costume, a prank, but it didn't feel like a prank. I still do night shifts sometimes. I keep the lights bright and the cameras rolling.